Saddle up, everyone. We got our first big Wednesday review on the docket here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, and we are going to lump in a very short Thursday preview on the end of today's show. As I mentioned on yesterday's podcast, there will be many episodes this year where we cram the look ahead and the recap into the same podcast. This is one of those days. Tomorrow probably won't be, if I'm thinking through this right, but we'll talk about that a bit more, I think, towards the end of the show. Right now, you guys want me to get into the stuff, and the stuff today is extraordinary. It's a 10-game Wednesday recap. We had basically, I can say the entire NBA, but we had most of the NBA playing their first game of the year. We had all kinds of crazy storylines. We had injuries, even on frickin' opening night. Couldn't give us even one day of reprieve from that. And we're going to break that all down here and then some on today's episode. I'm Dan Besbris. Thanks so much for tuning in. Find me on social at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. Twitter is blowing up right now, so I would encourage you guys to join. If only because, again, I've said this before, the Twitter side and the pod side, they link up. You know, the pod is where we can go into detail on all of this stuff, but as things are happening in real time, that's where the social side comes in, especially for you folks that are in first come, first serve kind of league. So find me over there. Again, that's Dan Besbris. Old Man Squad is the Twitter handle of our network. Please do give a follow there. Hit the like button, subscribe to all of our stuff, and if you have a moment to do that 5-star review on Apple and Spotify, I will love you forever. You guys, at this point, you've seen one, so you've seen them all. Let's throw it up on the screen. This is the Basketball Monster box score recap page. We're going to go through the games one by one and talk about everything we learned from them. So let's start at the top. We'll go chronologically. Indiana at Detroit. We'll basically go team by team here as well. Pacers are kind of a club where there wasn't a whole lot we were looking for. As you might recall from yesterday's look ahead, you know, a big one was, hey, would TJ McConnell get 20 minutes? No, he was excellent in his 16 minutes, but 16 minutes ain't going to be enough. I know he can pile up stats quickly, and 14 points, 4 assists, a steal on good shooting. That would play long-term, but long-term, that's not repeatable in 16 minutes. So McConnell, I think, can be left on the waiver wire. Benedict Mathurin had 19 and 6 off the bench. He's going to have these games where he pops off for scoring, and then he's going to have other ones where he's completely gone. You can leave him on the wire. Aaron Nesmith played 19 minutes. Andrew Nembhard was one that I talked about, a guy that I'm lower on, I think, than consensus coming into the year, and he didn't do very much either. Notable, I suppose, in this game is that Tyrese Halliburton only had 15 points and 4 assists. Siakam had 9 assists, and Nembhard had 7. I don't think that's a trend that's going to continue all season long. Halliburton ended up being a bit more of a scorer in this game, taking 18 shots and missing most of them. He's going to be fine. You guys remember from my preseason shows, I did 1,000 of them. I think Halliburton's going to be an end of the first, beginning of the second per game guy because of Pascal Siakam. But it's going to be typically, at least on the assist side, it'll be a little bit better than this. So is there a buy low window? I don't know. Maybe someone's like, crap, I wish I would have had like LaMelo instead, because he had a big ball game yesterday and you can kind of work with it. Here's the thing. So there are a lot of expert level players out there and a lot of intermediate level players, but there are also folks that overreact to math. It happens all the time. I had someone in a YouTube mention already this morning that was like, Dan, how's that Freddie VanVleet pick working out for you? You know what? Great. We're going to do a show on buy lows and sell highs, and we can go into this a little bit more. And I'll talk more about Fred when we get there, but like, how do you look at a game where he shot 4 of 18 over 37 minutes, had 2 threes, 4 boards, 6 assists, and 2 steals, and think that's not a great sign? Dude played 37 minutes, took 18 shots. That's the dream scenario. So people are working with strange preconceived notions. They're going to see what they want to see, and you might be able to get guys from them in situations where you wouldn't expect it. Anyway, over on the Pistons side, Jalen Duren had a double-double with 0 defensive stats. That is, of course, the big fear with him. Cade Cunningham was great in his season opener, and the field goal percent wasn't terrific, but 28-8, you're not turning away. Friend of the program, Tobias Harris, had 13 points early in this game and then did not score after that. Only had 2 rebounds. Down first game for Toby, but 36 minutes, he'll be fine. He got 13 shots. I expect him to get somewhere in that 13 to 15 shot neighborhood. He should be a top 50 guy with a little room to go beyond that. So again, if you're looking for possible values on the board after one day, throw Tobias and Tyrese Halliburton both into that bucket. Brooklyn, led by Cam Thomas's 27 shots. They lost to Atlanta, but 27 shots is quite significant. Cam had 36 points, 7 threes, 3 steals. He's going to be going wild this year. The steals were very high. The field goal percent was also very high at 52%. There's going to be a lot of boom and bust. If you're punting field goal, he obviously made a lot of sense early. I took him in a league where there's field goal made and free throw made categories. I feel pretty good about that. What could you get for him after this one? I mean, you could probably aim to try to sell high after one game. Try to go get somebody you think might be a top 40 player. Because it ain't going to be this good every night. And we all know that because he's not going to shoot 52% or take 27 shots every single ball game. It's just not. Other guys we were paying attention to in this Nets game, and there were a few of them. Dennis Schroeder had 13 and 7 on 16 shots. Overall, that's probably a positive for him, but the 5 turnovers, the bad field goal percent was always kind of part of the mess for Schroeder. I think he's a guy you're probably mostly playing if you're punting field goal. So I don't know that I would. I mean, he's probably drafted in most places, but if there's a league where he's on the wire, I mean, you're playing with fire a little bit there. You probably go and you do add him. Ben Simmons did not get hurt in 24 minutes. I think that's probably about the best thing you could say. He had 6 turnovers, 6 points, 5 boards, and 8 assists. I don't know what the purpose of Ben Simmons is these days, other than to just show that his career is not over. I don't think belongs on head-to-head rosters. I think you could treat him, and this is what I did. I drafted him in like the 14th, 15th round of some roto leagues where I'm treating him as an active stash just to see what happens. And then Cam Johnson did pretty much the exact average of what we thought might happen, which was 14 and 4, a steal, a block, 1 3-pointer, where I think maybe we thought he might hit 2. I'm hoping he takes more than 10 shots in the next one. I'm not interested in Dorian Finney-Smith. Nick Claxton got ejected from this ball game. He came off the bench in kind of a goofy little twist. Is there a buy low opportunity on Claxton? Maybe. In fact, I should write that one down because that was odd, and you know it's going to be better than this most days. So let me make a note to myself on Nick Claxton as a possible buy low. Cam Johnson, I think you're fine, so just hold on there. I mentioned during the run-up to the season that I thought the Atlanta Hawks could end up being one of the best fantasy gold mine teams. Now, playing the Brooklyn Nets is a nice way to start because Brooklyn's not going to defend anybody. But we got a 28-8 game out of Onyeka Okongwu in 29 bench minutes, plus 3 blocks and a ridiculous 11 out of 12 shooting from the field and 6 of 6 free throws. There simply could not be a better start to his year. Dyson Daniels had 15-5 with 2 3-pointers, 5 steals, and a block, and he missed 3 free throws, or this would have been the line of the night. Trey had 30 and 12. Again, it's not going to be this good every ball game. This was a particularly well-rounded line for him. And Jalen Johnson had issues at the free throw line. Hawks couldn't make a damn free throw yesterday, other than apparently Onyeka Okongwu. Jalen Johnson went 3 of 8 at the foul line with 6 turnovers. Oopsies. If he does normal career average type stuff there, we're talking about 3 extra free throws, 1 extra shot made, probably 4 fewer turnovers, and then you're talking about like a 16-point, 10 rebound, 4 assists, 3 steal, 1 block game, maybe a 3-pointer. That would have been a hell of a night to talk about. I don't think you're going to be able to get Jalen Johnson because most folks saw the well-roundedness of the line and didn't freak out. But that was interesting. And then the potential buy low on the Atlanta side was Bogdan Bogdanovic, who got his typical 28 bench minutes, but only took 6 shots. It was just sort of semi-involved. I can't imagine that's going to stick. I don't think he outpaces I don't think Dyson Daniels and DeAndre Hunter take more shots than Bogdanovic most nights. I don't think Onyeka Okongwu takes more shots than him most nights. But, he's out there with Zachary Reese-Shea, who might be trying to commandeer a bit of that second unit usage. And so it might take a little bit of time. But Bogdanovic jumps out to me as a really interesting buy low after day one. Paolo Banchero made me eat my words for one ball game here, but I also don't think this is going to be a recurring theme. He had 33 and 11. The scoring in the boards, I think, will be fine for him, but the 4 3-pointers, the 50% shooting, the 83% foul shots, the 0 turnovers, this was your best case scenario for Paolo. Thing is, though, you probably drafted him around 40, and you're not going to be able to get anything better than that, so just roll with it. Franz Wagner, nice, efficient ball game. And I said during the preseason, I like his fantasy game. I just thought he was going 2 rounds too early, and I stand by that. I did not have Gary Harris hitting 6 3-pointers on opening night. That one was not on my bingo card. Wendell Carter Jr. had 14 rebounds, but he's a bad defensive stats center. We know enough about him to know that 26.5 minutes is not going to be enough long term. So go ahead and just leave that alone. By the way, I'm not talking about streaming. When I say leave a guy alone, we're talking about full season decisions on our recap shows. That's what this type of episode is about. Our weekly preview shows, we'll talk about, we did that on Monday this week. I'm going to try to do those on Sunday, so there's a little bit more time for you guys to see them. That's when you get into who's a head-to-head stream. Like, Wendell Carter Jr. is an obvious head-to-head stream type of guy when Orlando has a good schedule. What I'm talking about now on these recap shows, and that's going to be the case all season long, who belongs on a roster longer term. Jalen Suggs had some pretty nasty foul trouble in the first half. I think he played like 6 first half minutes, and then the second half he only played a few minutes because the game was over. So poor Jalen Suggs only got 12 minutes. He'll be fine. I don't know if there's a buy low opportunity there because his line actually wasn't that awful despite basically not playing, but it's something to think about. KCP was a guy I thought might have some role coming into the year. I am amending that. I don't think he's going to have a role on this team. I think his job is just to stand at the 3-point line and play a bunch of defense. And if they don't need him, like they didn't in this ball game, then he's not going to do much. And Jonathan Isaac, one of the guys that I tried to snap up at the end of most of my games capped leagues, left this ball game early with hip discomfort. It's always something. He had a steal and 2 blocks in 11 minutes and a 3-pointer. So in Roto, I'm actually going to sit on him because I wasn't playing him anyway. I was just going to watch and see how he got used for the Magic for at least the first couple of weeks. And this doesn't change anything. He was a stash. He was an active stash on my Roto team before. Now he's just an inactive stash on my Roto team. If he even misses a ball game, he might not. This might have just been like, Jonathan Isaac was feeling a little bit sore. So see ya. Head-to-head, he was never an option. Miami got punked in this game, so don't read too much into it other than to say, look, Jimmy Butler was terrible. Bam Adebayo was terrible. Terry Rozier was serviceable, as was Tyler Hero. Nikola Jovic got picked up in a bunch of leagues because he had 15 points, a 3, a steal, and a block, but I'm not doing anything with that. Basically, just take this game, throw it in the waste paper basket, assume that this is generally overall a good sign for Terry Rozier's value on the year, and Jimmy Butler, who people were a little bit sour on anyway. I mean, maybe somebody ended up with him by accident. You could probably get him cheaper than he was drafted, even after one bad ball game. I don't think you're going to be able to get Bam Adebayo. I was down on Jaime Jaquez. He put up decent numbers in 19 minutes, but 19 minutes isn't remotely close to enough for him to post value, so I remain down on Jaquez, and I don't think you need to be rostering Kel'el Ware, who had 6 minutes of playing time. So, nah. Also, Haywood Highsmith played 30 minutes, but I don't care. Milwaukee went into Philadelphia, got themselves a relatively easy win over the Sixers, who did not have Joel Embiid or Paul George. But who cares? A win's a win, especially on opening night. Dame was good. Giannis was good. Brook Lopez was awesome. I'm sorry I doubted you, Brook. I wanted to get him in the 90s. He didn't fall into the 90s very often. And maybe I should have gone and gotten him in the 80s. Great game for Brook Lopez. Some of that might have been the opponent. Andre Drummond was out there. Sixers are going to have a big center on the court no matter what. And so there may be days where you get a little bit more small ball, but not in this one. They just kept going at him near the rim, and Brook collecting one of his most well-rounded lines ever. So that's a good sign. Possibly a little bit of a sell high moment, but whatever. I I thought Bobby Portis had a shot to be inside the top 100 this year. This is certainly a good start in that regard. He didn't rebound well, but he got his shots up. He went, chucking away when he got into the ball game. Also managed a couple steals and a block. So that's a good sign. And no, I'm not picking up Taurean Prince. At some point, Chris Middleton is going to show up anyway, so who cares? And I think we saw enough of Gary Trent Jr. just in one game to say, nope. Philly. So the question, of course, is what do we do in the short term? Because long term, Philly, it's just going to be the three main guys, Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid. I don't think anybody else is on the team is going to have top 100 value once those three guys are healthy and playing. Drummond is your obvious fill-in for Embiid. Keep doing that. Kelly Oubre is your fill-in for Paul George. I think you keep doing that while those guys are out. What I don't know after one ball game is how does someone like Kelly Oubre look when Embiid comes back? Does he kill both streamers or just Drummond? We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but for now, the Sixers are a pretty easy team to handicap. You're not bothering with Eric Gordon or KJ Martin or Kyle Lowry, who is actually not bad off the bench. Caleb Barton played 37 bench minutes. I mean, does he come out and start the next time and play 37 minutes? I guess there's an outside shot at some kind of value there, but I think I'd rather just leave it alone. It's one of those things where it's sort of more work than the possible reward. Before we get to Cleveland and Toronto, let's take a very quick commercial break. Evan Mobley was wonderful for Cleveland, and he was one of those guys that I talked about during the preseason. I thought maybe this is the year he's just a little bit better. I don't think he's going to be this great every day, but you can see if you go to my buckets from the free rank board that I put out before the season started, I had Mobley in there with Markkanen and Cade Cunningham. So he's a cut above. I had him a cut above Bam and Dejounte Murray. Poor guy got hurt. And Desmond Bane and JJJ. Mobley was ahead of those guys to me. And this game did nothing to change my opinion there. I just, like last year, we saw Mobley's efficiency improve, but his minutes were down because he wasn't healthy most of the year. This year, I felt like, well, if the efficiency sticks and the minutes come back up a little bit, now you're talking about kind of the perfect storm that gets him into the early 30s. So, again, it's not going to be this good. He's not going to hit all 6 free throws, and 64% is high for him. But, like, the boards, the steals, the blocks, that stuff is all going to be there in some capacity. And then, of course, this game was over early, so don't pay too much attention to the minutes. Jared Allen was solid. He had 4 blocks also. Very high number for him. Expect that to level off. Donovan Mitchell was fine. Darius Garland had foul issues. Again, if you're looking for possible buys at the beginning of the year, you got to put Darius Garland on that list. I think people, like coming off a bad season last year, this was the last thing that folks wanted to see, and then they saw it. And a bunch of Karis LeVert questions. He played 21 minutes, guys. I know he scored 19 points, but he shot 8 out of 9 from the field, and we know that he's a mid-40s guy there. So hard pass for me on Karis LeVert. Over on the Toronto side, Immanuel Quickley banged his pelvis. That's a stupid way to... He took a hard fall about halfway through the ball game, did not return. It afforded Grady Dick a bunch of extra shots before this thing went full blowout mode and everybody got yanked. Really phrasing. I got to be more careful. In any event, I don't think they expect Quickley to miss a bunch of time. If he misses a small amount of time, this elevates Grady Dick from a very close injury replacement to RJ Barrett to just like you'd have to play him at that point because Scotty Barnes is going to take shots and then Grady's going to take a bunch of shots. But if Quickley's back, I remain very much on the fence. I don't think I'm a pro Grady Dick guy with only one guy out. I think he needs multiple guys out of the way to get enough usage to cover up the fact that he doesn't do that much besides just take 3-pointers, at least from a fantasy standpoint. He doesn't rebound all that much and pass all that much. He did have 2 blocks yesterday, which cool, but I don't expect that to stick. Certainly not 2 blocks in 36 minutes. Obviously, stick with Jakob Poeltl. He had a weird high turnover game. Everything else will be fine. They just got spanked in this one. And try not to freak out about Quickley's injury because hopefully it won't be that bad. Charlotte, nice come-from-behind win to take down the Houston Rockets. LaMelo Ball, a league-best performance night. 34 points, 8 boards, 11 assists, a steal, a block, 4 3-pointers. 50% from the field, 10 of 10 at the free throw line, and only 2 turnovers. And that's the difference for Charlotte. I mean, they're not a good basketball team when LaMelo's around, but they're not a lose every ball game team. They got the Hornets did a nice performance out of Trey Mann when Brandon Miller left early with hip issues of his own. It's a hip and pelvis kind of night. You know, we had thumb stuff a couple years ago, and now we got crotch stuff these days. Miles Bridges was meh. And I mean, I'm sure he'll be fine. Bridges will be somewhere in that, 50 to 75 range this year, probably. And Nick Richards was super boring as expected. And it's, Brandon Miller, young dude. I can't imagine he's going to miss all that much time with just hip soreness unless there was more going on there. So the question becomes what to do about Trey Mann. Head to head, I think you pick him up if we hear that Brandon Miller is missing another ball game. I don't know that I would use a move on Mann until then. Just thinking through the Hornets calendar here, they go tomorrow and Saturday, a couple of high traffic days. If we find out that Brandon Miller is going to miss the game tomorrow, I think I would pick up Trey Mann. I don't think I would do it today, though. Because then you're talking about using a move on a guy who potentially gets pushed back to, I don't want to say obscurity, but he ain't taking 16 shots when Miller's around. Anywho, Houston side, big game out of Şengün. He had double-digit rebounds like 10 minutes into the ball game, so 18 doesn't seem that insane after the way things started. 4 steals and a block was nice for Şengün. The 2 3-pointers was nice. The low field goal was a little weird, and the 3 turnovers was kind of expected. Overall, a lot to like about that line from Şengün, but I also don't think that it's going to quite be like this every single ball game. This one was, free and easy kind of basketball game. Also, Jabari Smith Jr. didn't really get involved. Dylan Brooks, couldn't shoot, also didn't really get involved. It was sort of a weird one for Houston, but you could see they were going for it. They really didn't want to lose this game, and so they leaned on the guys they felt they could lean on, and they shot 37%, and it was everybody's fault altogether. The Rockets, no one on the team could hit a damn shot. Freddie VanVleet shot 4 out of 18, and again, we'll get into Freddie in just a second here. Amen Thompson, 22 bench minutes. I'd like to see that higher. The rest of the bench barely played at all, which was sort of to be expected. I thought we'd see a little bit more Tari Eason. And I think for all intents and purposes with Houston, you can probably dump anybody on the bench that's not Amen Thompson. He's the guy you want to hang on to because I think generally it's going to be a little bit better than this. But it wasn't in this one. Jalen Green, 28 points, 5 3-pointers, 2 rebounds, and nothing else on 39% shooting. Yeesh. At least he didn't turn it over. And then with VanVleet, I got to go back to this YouTube post. I can't get over the fact, and it happens on Twitter all the time also. It's not unique to YouTube. But someone's just like, how's that going for you, Dan? Okay, first of all, we are 1 game into the season. And if you're really looking at the numbers here, this was wonderful. 18 shots. The big issue that everybody had with Freddie VanVleet was that he doesn't take enough shots. Now he did, and you're still mad because he didn't make them? He's a 40%-ish field goal guy. He shot 22% in this one, which basically means instead of hitting 4 out of 18 shots, he needs to hit about 7. If he hits 7 shots instead of 4 in this game, you're talking about 6 or 7 additional points. So now it's a 20-point, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steal, probably 3 3-pointers night. That would give him 21 points with 4 for 4 free throws and only 2 turnovers. And heaven forbid any of his teammates could make a frickin' shot. He would have had more than 6 assists. This was wonderful. I have no issue at all with the Freddie VanVleet line in this ball game. And he played 37 minutes, a team high. After, pick a lane, people. Your issue with Freddie coming into the season was, his minutes are going to trend down because young guys, and he doesn't take enough shots. All right, he took the shots, and his minutes were fine. Get it together, people. Learn how season-long math works before you come after me with this stuff. Chicago lost at New Orleans, although New Orleans lost the long game in this one. Vooch, 21-11. I mean, that's good. The rest of his line was lacking. Zach LaVine, 27-5 and 3 also good, but some other stuff a little bit lacking. Kobe White, 10, 8, and 6. Lonzo, 14 minutes. Keep an eye on that. He's an active stash for me in 15th round or IL replacement roto games cap stuff, but not head-to-head. I have exactly 0 Josh Giddeys on my fantasy teams. This is not why, and you can't like plant a flag in it after one bad ball game. I have 0 Josh Giddeys. I have 1 Kobe White, and it's only because he was a keeper. I have very few Bulls players in general on my fantasy teams. Very few. And it's not because I think they're going to lose, and it's not because I think they're not going to have some nights with value. It's just I think there's too many of them. The minutes were fine, but there's just only so many shots that are going to go up there. Zach LaVine is going to get his, and you figured Kobe White was going to get his, although not as much in this one. You thought Josh Giddey was going to get his, but not really. Too many turnovers, obviously a big problem here for Chicago, but man, I don't know with these Bulls, dude. I don't know. Over on the New Orleans side, the thin get thinner. They were down Zion and Trey Murphy III already, and now they're down Dejounte Murray, who fractured his hand and is expected to miss at least a month. The hope is that it does not require surgery, which would put him on the Isaiah Hartenstein 1 month recovery process, but we don't have the news on that yet. They'll probably learn that over the next 24 to 48 hours. In the meantime, assuming Zion's back here not too long from now, he kind of just replaces DeJounte's usage in that lineup. And while the positions on the court move around a little bit, the rest stays fairly similar in that, I don't know if we'll see as much Missy with Zion in there because they'll almost have no choice but to run him up at center. But Brandon Ingram will get a ton here while guys are out. CJ McCollum's going to get a ton while guys are out. Herb Jones needs to do more than that. Unacceptably poor performance, but he's a hold. And then Jordan Hawkins is could he kind of guy? And the answer is sorta. 13.7 boards, a block, 3 3-pointers. This was nice. I don't, head-to-head, when the schedule is right, you definitely do it. They have a back-to-back not a back-to-back. It's an away and away. In fact, they have 2 of them in a row. They're at Portland twice later this week, and then they're at Golden State twice early next week. Weird scheduling quirks. I get it. And those Portland games presumably are going to be a lovely time to put up fantasy numbers. I kind of feel like I need to see Jordan Hawkins do it again or a couple more times to use him against a games cap. But head-to-head, I don't see why not. Poor Dejounte. That sucks. Memphis, a nail-biter over Utah. Desmond Bane had 24. He'll end this season ranked somewhere in the 40s, I would presume. John Morant, 22 and 10. It was fine. No 3-pointers, not much in the way of defensive stats, but at least the percentages were pretty good. So you certainly take that. Marcus Smart, 11 and 5 with a steal. Everything pretty normal there, except you hope you can get more than 1 steal in general. Smart is a guy I'm not certain holds top 100 value this year. We'll see. He's a hold for now, though. And then the sort of JJJ fallout guys, which is Zach Edey, who started at center and fouled out in 14 and a half minutes. He's probably on the buy low list. I keep forgetting to put these names on there. Edey's a buy low, but I wouldn't go very high on him because I think you're going to see a lot of this type of stuff. And Santi Aldama had 27 points in this one, played a team-high 31 minutes. We know enough about Aldama to know that he's a head-to-head streamer only, because as soon as you see this and then you drop him in a games cap league, he's going to put up a real clunker. So, no for me in Roto. Head-to-head, great, because the Grizzlies actually tomorrow start a 5 games in 7 nights stretch. That's the best you can get. The best they ever had. Where the hell were we? Utah, big-time Walker Kessler season opener, 16 and 14, a steal, 5 blocks. You knew the field goal percent was going to be good, but he managed it 4 out of 5 free throws. I don't know. That probably means that he's going to hit 2 out of 5 in his next ball game, but whatever. Great start to the year for Kessler. I know John Collins had 5,018 minutes. I don't know that that changes things a lot because if you're a bench player, you can just play until you foul out anyway. Kessler got the important minutes in this game. That's a nice sign for him going forward. I love that. I love what I'm seeing there. Larry Markkinen was awesome. Taylor Hendricks was pretty good in this game. 4 out of 7 shooting, with 3 of them being three-pointers, is probably not a thing we can count on happening again. The 2 steals and 1 block was the part of the Hendricks game that I was more encouraged by. But let's see if that's something that holds for more than a day. I'll say this. I would put him at the end of my roster over a lot of the Flyers that stunk on the first night. So I have no problem if you wanted to make that swapperoo. Jordan Clarkson had 17 and 7. We know the Jordan Clarkson experience. There are going to be some games where he scores a lot of points. There are going to be games where he shoots 2 for 20. It balances out to very bad in 9-cat and very fine if you're punting the thing or things that he's terrible at. Head-to-head build guy only. Keontae George, almost the same story as Jordan Clarkson, but the starter instead of the bench guy. Odds are Keontae George will be better at assists than Clarkson this year. But oof, I dodged Keontae everywhere that wasn't a points type of league. And this type of game is why. Now, I get it. They're not going to all be like this. This is an absolutely horrible performance to start the year. He'll have games where he shoots, 8 out of 12, and it balances out a little bit. But good Lord, the efficiency stuff is just too much for my teams to take there. And then Colin Sexton is a name to watch. He only played 25 minutes in this game, and there wasn't an obvious reason why. It's just, Jordan Clarkson playing well. There's a little bit of a redundancy thing going on there. I think I drafted Sexton in 1 or 2 spots, despite the fact that I said on the damn shows that I thought he was going too early at the end of draft season. And I don't know, whatever. Listen to yourself, Dan. I mean, you're not doing anything with it for now, but keep an eye on it. Phoenix beat the Clippers in overtime, and the 2 pieces of news I want to point out in this one. News number 1, Tyus Jones played 30 minutes in regulation, had 11 points, and I think he had 7 assists in regulation, 2 steals, a block, a 3-pointer. He didn't do much in overtime. I think he had 1 assist in there. He might have had a steal also. 30 minutes for Tyus Jones is an extraordinary first game. I am mind-boggled that the Suns got this dude on the minimum. Tyus Jones is way better than that. Tyus Jones might be the best contract in the NBA this year and belongs on fantasy teams. And the other piece of news in this one, forget the fact that Grayson Allen didn't play all that much because I was wondering how they would distribute the minutes. Yusuf Nurkic, only 22 minutes in an overtime game. He had 11 and 9 with a couple of steals, so he managed to do enough in his 22 minutes. But the Suns just have other ways that they can play right now. They can run small. They have the personnel to do it. They can run big with Mason Plumlee playing defense instead if they wanted to. It's not going to always be Nurkic getting 26, 27 minutes a ball game, and that is why I faded him this year. Again, it might be only a small change year over year, but there was almost no way it was going to get better. And that was the handicap on Nurk. Well, the usage was certainly there for James Harden, but the results were a little bit murky. 29, 12, and 8 is a great set of counting numbers. 2 threes and a steal is fine, but super high volume, 36% shooting and 8 turnovers. That simply will not cut it in 9-cat long term. I mean, I still think Harden's going to have some gigantic numbers this year, and hopefully he just doesn't turn it over this often. Don't freak out about it. Norman Powell played 35 regulation minutes. I'm trying to assess this as regulation instead of overtime. Also was really bad at shooting the basketball, but the 16 shots I liked. And Ivica Zubac's getting 13 shots I liked. So everything that we expected to happen in this game basically happened, other than Harden and Powell making any of their shots. So Norm is a guy you're playing at least while Kawhi Leonard is out, which I think is probably around a month, hopefully not longer than that. Harden, again, hoping for better efficiency days. And then Zubac, we knew he was going to do more with a Harden-centric offense. The only thing was missing in this game was a block shot. Otherwise, terrific. Oh, and Kevin Porter Jr. sucks. Thank goodness I'm not going to have to answer questions about KPJ. Derek Jones Jr. Pretty good, actually, in what the Clippers are doing right now. Definitely startable in head-to-head. Fringy roto, because 5 out of 6 shooting is not repeatable. So just kind of sit on it for now. And then Terrence Mann, we know he doesn't do enough to warrant fantasy consideration. And then the last game on the board, I was really hoping we'd get a little more information on these two teams, but this game was over early, so blowout stuff. But what we could pull away from it, first of all, Buddy Hield had 22 points in 15 minutes. He's going to get added in a bunch of spots, and then he's going to have 4 points in 15 minutes in the next one. We knew he was going to chuck. He's going to be a bench chucker for this team, but it's not going to be 12 shots in 15 minutes. That's not the highest usage on the team. You guys remember my take on the Warriors was I'm pretty much dodging everyone not named Steph Curry or Draymond Green. And I didn't see anything yesterday to make me change my mind on that. I don't like Jonathan Kuminga's fantasy game in particular. I don't like the path to minutes for DeAnthony Melton. I don't like the path to minutes for Kyle Anderson. I don't like the path to minutes for Buddy Hield. I don't like the percentages for Brandon Podziemski, who had a real goose egg. Now, Podziemski here is probably a buy low kind of guy, but he came off the bench in game 1. He wasn't even a starter. Andrew Wiggins was the starting shooting guard. Absolutely colossal shooting guard. Wiggins was actually pretty good in yesterday's game. My one big takeaway from the non-Steph or Dre Warriors was that Chase Jackson Davis played 25 minutes in a blowout win and got dropped in a league or two that I'm in. He's the guy. He's my third favorite Warrior. Trace Jackson Davis is a guy I think belongs on rosters because if he's out there 25 minutes, he's going to typically get more than 4 rebounds and more than 1 defensive stat. And it's usually not going to be just 1 steal. There's usually going to be block involved, and Steph is probably not going to lead the team in rebounds most nights. So there's a little bit of weird stuff going on, but like Jackson Davis going 5 for 5 from the field, and people are like, nah, I don't know, I wanted more than this. Like, what were you expecting? 25 minutes was the target for him. And the Blazers. Well, the simple things that we can, the easy conclusions we can draw here is, number one, I'm tripling down on the same thing I said on Twitter about 4 times leading up to the season. Donovan Clingan's not going to do anything while DeAndre Ayton is there. Ayton's got to be gone, and then Clingan is a play. He's a fill-in right now. He's going to be over-rostered because he's the size of a mountain, and he's a rookie, and everybody wants rookies to do stuff. But Clingan's not going to play when Ayton's there. It's just that simple. Now, Ayton's going to miss a bunch of ball games. So if you wanted to sit on Clingan and drop him in there on a games cap side, be my guest. But there's just no way that you can sit on that dude all season on a head-to-head side. 2 points, 2 boards? Like, not enough, man. 12 minutes? The other obvious takeaway here, I think, is Denny Avdia does belong on rosters while Shaedon Sharpe is out. I don't know if we can say that for sure when Sharpe is back, but he had enough of a playmaking job and rebounding job and just like all-aroundy kind of day that he belongs on rosters. I still don't know if I have the confidence to throw him up against the games cap. I feel like I want to watch another one, but he's certainly close, if nothing else. And then the harder conclusions, I think, to draw from this game, hard conclusion number one is, what do you do with Jeremy Grant? He was somebody I dodged in all 9 category leagues. I drafted him in a points format. I think that's probably where I'm still staying with him. He refuses to rebound. He refuses to play defense on a bad team, and that feels like it's going to stay the same. Scoot got 18 shots up in 28 minutes. I liked that. So still, to me, makes sense only as a punt field goal, punt turnover type. Tumani Kamara had a pretty well-rounded line in 30 minutes. That might be repeatable while Sharpe is out, but I think we can take a watch list approach with him for at least one more ball game. And that's where I sit with the maybes, or the hard conclusions to draw over on the Portland side. You know what I did? I forgot I did this on yesterday's show. We'll do it again on today's. My top 5, which admittedly was a lot easier to do when there were only 2 games on the card. My top 5 from last night is, here we go. Number 5, Immanuel Quickley's bruised pelvis. I don't really know how to follow up that sentence. And sort of what it means, I guess, then for Scotty Barnes, Grady Dick, and whatever else is going on with the Raptors. Number 4, my top 5, Dyson Daniels, 34 minutes played, 6 defensive stats. I don't care what else happened in the ball game. You're looking at the opportunity, which was great, and the initial results on defense, also great. Dyson Daniels belongs on 100% of fantasy rosters. That should have already been the case because he was high on our Flyers board. He was in the first chunk of Flyers. You should have been targeting him, and he was easy to get because he was farther down the Yahoo board than a lot of the other guys. Number 3, Onyeka Okongwu, 29 minutes and a ridiculous stat line. There'll be plenty of games where they need Capella's girth out there, but against the Brooklyn Nets, who didn't have Nick Claxton after being ejected, last night was not one of those nights. A great start for Okongwu. Probably more of a sell high right now after that huge ball game, but should be in position to have a better year going forward. Number 2, Walker Kessler, one of our big-time targets during draft season, started with 30 minutes and a 16 and 14 and 5 block game. And the number 1 story from last night's card, Dejounte Murray's broken wrist. When a 4th rounder goes down for an extended stretch, it has to be the top story. What does it mean for the Pelicans? We don't really know yet because they're missing 2 other key guys, at least, on a nightly basis. We'll be assessing the Pels as we go. As I mentioned, this is not the end of today's show. This is going to be a long one to start your Thursday because we're also going to be looking at the look-ahead part of the calendar. We're mushing all of that together on today's. Luckily, the look-ahead part of the show shouldn't take more than 5 to 8 minutes, and then we can get this thing wrapped up. Here is what's coming up tonight. Must-watch Thursday. A few teams, believe it or not, are still playing their first game of the year. What could that mean for the waiver wire and our rosters on this 4-game Thursday? This also is a nice in-show reminder to hit that like button, rate and subscribe however you're taking in the show, and to follow on Twitter at Dan Bespris. Here's what we're looking for tonight. We'll go team by team chronologically. The Celtics, funny thing is, and it has nothing to do with tonight, about the only thing I'm curious on with Boston is what do they do when Al Horford rests? Is it going to be Xavier Tillman time? Is it going to be Luke Cornett time? Are they going to run small? I'd like to know because there's a half season of those games that are still floating around out there, and I'd like to pounce on whatever guy jumps into that center spot. The Wizards play their season opener tonight. I'd like to know what's going on with Alex Sarr and Jonas Valanciunas. We may have a buy low opportunity that creeps up depending on how they perform, so keep an eye on that. And has Bilal made any jumps in his reality game that would allow his fantasy to also step forward, such as percentages, things of that nature? He looked pretty good, I thought, during the preseason, and he's likely to be the starter for the Wizards. But there were so many holes in his fantasy game last year that couldn't quite cover up the great defensive stats. Does that change this year? So be ready. Remember, I said last year a bunch of times, I was like, I think Bilal is going to be a pretty good basketball player, but it's not last season, maybe this coming year. And now it is this coming year, so let's watch closely. San Antonio also opens their season. A lot of the teams do tonight, actually. There's only a couple, I think, that are going for a second time. I'd love to see what CP3's minutes look like in the season opener. I think it's possible, too, keep this in the back of your mind, that Chris Paul's minutes are lower here, and they slowly bring him up to like a plateau number. So don't be blown away if Chris Paul only plays like 24, 25 minutes tonight, as they like work him up towards 28-ish is probably the end goal. But I still like him. But again, possible buy low opportunity depending on how that goes. And does anybody crack the top 100 with Devin Vassell out? Best candidate there would be Keldon Johnson. Don't worry, we'll talk a tiny bit more about him in a minute, but those are your Spurs things to watch. Mavericks have 3 things going on that I'm paying attention to. The Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford center splits, but that's something we've been talking about since the end of last year, so we don't have to go too far down that rabbit hole right now. I believe both of those guys belong on fantasy rosters, and then the question is really who wins? How many shots does Klay Thompson get when the Mavs have both Luka and Kyrie in there? Simple. And is PJ Washington still a top 100 guy? I say still, but is it going to be dependent on him going on hot streaks, or is it going to be, the hot streaks get him up more like top 50, top 60, and then the cold streaks are 150 and it balances out near 100? I think he's got a shot, but I truly don't know, because Klay Thompson coming in does minimize the opportunity for anyone that's not one of the sort of first three names on that list. How much does that cramp the style on PJ? The Thunder, not much here. I think I just like to see what Caruso looks like here, specifically with Hartenstein out, who is out for about a month or so. I'm not going to buy into any, if Lou Dort has a good game or whatever, so that's a simple one. Denver Nuggets, will there be a fifth fantasy option on the Nuggets? And, of course, Aaron Gordon is a punt free throw fourth option, so is it really just going to be Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., and Jamal Murray? Or can someone else step up? My current belief, my prediction is no, but this is why we watch. I could be wrong. Timberwolves playing their second game. Opportunity for Mike Conley to show that he's not completely dead. Played just 20 minutes in their season opener. I'm hoping we get Conley back up into the mid to high 20s and looks a bit more like himself. It would allay a lot of fears, certainly, because if he's as bad as he was in game one again and plays 20 minutes again here in game two, it's going to speed up the drops. I've been trying to talk all of you into hanging on for about a week and a half here. Give him like 4 or 5 games. But if he plays 20 minutes in the first 2, I don't know how you hang on after that. Dante DiVincenzo's the other one on the Wolves. 30-plus minutes in that first game. Is that the plan, or was that because they were searching for something? So that's also, I think, key here in game 2. And finally, the Sacramento Kings, who play their season opener. How does DeMar impact the other guys in a real-life game? We saw the preseason, but everybody gets 1,000 shots in the preseason because no one's playing any defense and nobody's slowing down and running plays slowly. Everybody's just running and gunning. Now it's real life. So how many shots does Fox get? What does Domantas Sabonis do? How does DeMar look in this one? What about Keegan Murray? That all is from the DeMar DeRozan sort of locus. Can Keon Ellis be a fantasy guy with Kevin Huerter around? I doubt it, but you never know. It feels like those two guys are just going to cannibalize each other, but something to watch as well. And injury replacement board early in the day today. So again, not like if news breaks, we'll add it over on Twitter. Right now, the only player on the board with a burger is Keldon Johnson. Kevin Vassell is out. I think Keldon Johnson should get enough shots, and they should be open enough with Wembanyama and Chris Paul around to sort of get guys the ball and create gravity and space and whatever. That's not to say that Keldon's not going to be rusty. A lot of guys miss shots on opening night, and you've seen a lot of clanker games so far. But just from like an straight opportunity standpoint, Keldon probably has enough to creep up towards that 100 range. Will anybody else step up? I don't know. I don't know why I wrote that there. And that is your recap and short look ahead here on this Thursday. Thanks so much, everybody. Big Wednesday was quite a day, and we survived it. Let's get through this one. The fun continues. The grind begins. We're in for a hell of a treat here. We're in for a great ride. I'm so excited to get going. Tomorrow, odds are we'll probably break up the look back and the look ahead, because the look ahead is going to be at the entire weekend. So just feel it out. Make sure you're subscribed. You'll see as the shows come. I'll try to title them or give descriptions that give a good idea of how much is covered in each one. And stay tuned for later today, because I want to do a overreaction show. Basically, what did people overreact to after one ball game? Because believe it or not, and I know it sounds impossible, there are actually buy low situations that popped up already. All right, let's put a pin in this one. We're near 50 minutes. That's enough, right? That's enough. I'm Dan for Old Man Squad. Find me over on Twitter. We'll talk over there, and I'll see you in a little bit. So long for now.